Welcome to Built to Finish. I'm your host, Stephen Pivnik. Join me each week as we explore the journeys of audacious goal setters. This includes experienced founders, CEOs, and entrepreneurs sharing pivotal moments that propel their success. We'll also be talking with endurance athletes who push the limits of physical and mental ability. This show is brought to you by Acresis, offering tailored, high-impact advisory services to help founders get to their finish line with a strategic acquisition or majority investor recapitalization. Let's get started. Welcome to another episode of Built to Finish. I am so excited to introduce today's guest. She is an award-winning business owner and designer, passionate about bringing together the best of the best to create effective, bespoke, and compelling design experiences. She has taught many workshops in web design, branding, and contextual model. She is the podcast co-host of Process Makes Purpose, which explores innovative branding, digital marketing, and entrepreneurship. She is currently the founder and CCO of Mosaic Collective. Sienna Roman, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Stephen.
It's great to have you. And I want to, right out of the gate, give you a huge shout out. You and your company were so incredible to work with when I was redoing my personal website, stephenpivnik.com.
Mhm.
I personally love it. Obviously, it's my website, but I continuously get compliments on it. So thank you for an incredible job well done.
Of course. I told you this offline, but it's still one of my top 5 favorite sites I've ever done.
I love it.
It's so you, but you're so unique, which is what we're going to talk about today, of how when you're so unique, it should produce a brand that's so unique. So I think part of the reason that's why I love it. So yeah.
No, I appreciate it. And you definitely brought out me in the website. So we'll definitely get to that in a bit.
Great.
So from a branding perspective, how do you define a strong brand? Like what are the key elements to make a brand stand out in today's day and age?
Yeah. I would say that the strength of the brand relies on the consistency of how it's represented across all of the platforms that people could interact with it. So some people may say that it's the style of the brand or, how trendy it is. And I don't think it's that at all. I think there are strategic examples of when people may have an underdone brand or maybe an overdone brand. But regardless, if you have it represented in one way on the site and another way on your social platforms and maybe another way on the slides, that is just a weak brand because you don't really have a consistent presence wherever someone might be interacting with you first. So I think the easiest, simplest answer is just the brand relies on the consistency of how it's represented across the various platforms people could be interacting with it.
Okay, so consistency is definitely key. I agree wholeheartedly. So in addition to consistency, what are some of the elements that can make a brand compelling and attractive to the audience?
It's a tricky question because I think if a brand is done well, it's just a reflection of the business or the person it's representing. And so I would say that if it's not accurately reflecting the business or person behind it, then it almost is unattractive because it isn't authentic. And as humans, we love authenticity. It's part of the reason I think social media is so huge because people love seeing vulnerable people and the everyday lives behind the curtain. And so branding in one way is supposed to kind of keep that continuity going of the vulnerability and the authenticity. And so what's attractive to person A may not be attracted to person B, but as a brand professional, it's so important we stay authentic and consistent with whatever is behind it, why it started, why you're in business in the first place, who you're serving, and then all of that being kind of aligned should lead to something that is attractive to your target users. So it's hard to have like a blanket statement of like, this is what makes it compelling. It's just a matter, I believe, about being authentic to why you started in the first place, who you're trying to attract, and then what ultimately you're selling. And we can go into more specifics around how to do that for different types of entrepreneurs or even in different industries. But that's generally my rule, is if it should authentically represent everything I just mentioned.
Okay, no, that makes sense. That makes sense. So To bring up something kind of topical, major companies, especially like three come to mind, Walmart, Campbell Soup, and Jaguar, within, I think, the last 90 days, all went through rebranding, right? And these are old, established companies, and they chose to rebrand. When is the right time for a company to go through a rebranding exercise, and what are the steps they need to take?
I didn't see the Walmart rebrand until you just mentioned it. It got really geometric?
It's literally hot off the press. I think it came out like yesterday or the
Okay.
day before. And if I didn't tell you it was different, you would never notice. It's just a slightly different shade of blue and bolder, but it's still the same letters.
Okay. Interesting. I'm seeing something now, but you explained it perfectly. Slightly bolder and a little bit more vibrant blue.
Right.
Jaguar, I feel like everyone knows about because that was so crazy.
And the internet was like up in arms on how horrible that rebranding was. So how does a company that big miss the mark? Well, that only time will tell whether they've missed the mark, right? But walk us through that process. Why do they do it, and how do they do it?
Yeah, so I actually did a LinkedIn post about this, and I rarely post on LinkedIn just because there are so many voices. So when I do speak, it's like it's something I want to be passionate about. But the Jaguar rebrand, it was hard for me to have an opinion one way or another on if I thought it was like the right move or the wrong move because I wasn't behind the doors making strategic business decisions. But my thing is, I looked up. If you're listening to this, type in like Jaguar, like look up the board of directors for the Jaguar, the C-suite of Jaguar, and these people are the most button up, professional looking, like straight in line types of people. And I'm thinking about the brand designers who had to pitch this idea to them. I don't even understand how they like convinced them to do such a huge turn. Um, so I'm like, regardless of if you like the brand or not, you have to give some credence to all these branding professionals who sold this idea to these people. It's like ridiculous. Um, but is your question more around like the success of it?
No, not specifically on Jaguar specific success, just from just an overall branding perspective. When should a company consider rebranding? What questions should they be asking themselves? And what are the steps to go through a successful rebrand?
Okay, so I'll start with the first one of like when you should consider it. We always try to design. So when you're designing a brand or redesigning a brand, you have to start with your business goals. Um, so I think like the biggest red flag if you're working with a creative is someone who's going to tell you that they're going to make your brand look pretty. Uh, Branding is very strategic. It's basically we're just leveraging a visual side to your business. There's many assets of the business, and if you just forget about the visual side or you have that ignorance, you're not taking advantage of something that's so important in this society, especially. So when you're thinking about your business goals and where you want to go, I usually say set your 5 year or even 10-year goal and then look at the brand that you have now and see if it's either going to hold you back or propel you to that goal. And so I also design websites. And so what we do is we design a website for where you want to be 5 years from now. And then when you hit that 5 year point and hopefully have achieved all of the goals you set out, that website or brand could hold you back. And so you got to keep pushing for the next 5 years. And that timeline could look different depending on what your business goals are, what business you're in. But I can just tell from just last week, I had a call with a client who happened to be a professional speaker, and she hit all of her business goals that we had set out from building her site in 2021. And that's not all obviously due to me. It's a lot of her hard work, but we had a brand that supported where she wanted to be at this point. So then she contacted me. She's like, we need to start rethinking the brand, making a few updates to the site so I can build for my next business goal, which is where I'm reaching for the next couple of years. So general rules, I think branding should last you 5 to 10 years if it's really good. I think the Walmart brand is a good example of something that was probably done relatively recently, considering Walmart's existence, but it's just a way to kind of keep it fresh. So I think about like, people, we like to switch our hair. We like to try a new product. We like to maybe try a new color, a new style. We're still who we are, but we're just like having a refresh. And so it makes you just feel alive and feel like fresh is just the word that keeps coming to mind. And so Walmart making that really slight teak, it's like that blue that we were used to with Walmart feels tired now because we've seen it so much. And so by making it just slightly more vibrant, it wakes it up. It's like, hey, I'm still energetic and I'm still, relevant. And so I think that's probably one of the reasons they did it is they want to keep feeling like fresh.
Yeah, I've got to hand to them. They definitely didn't go crazy with their last two rebrands. The previous one to this was just removing that star that they had after the L, like in the middle of Wall and Mart. So all they did was remove a star, and I can't imagine the millions of dollars that it took to remove a star.
I can't imagine. Think about all the places that it lived. So much money. But like the Jaguar, for instance, like they must have some serious concerns about where the brand was headed and who the target audience it was attracting. Like that's the thought that came to mind is like, I don't know Jaguar that well, but I'm assuming that their, main clientele is aging. And so now they're trying to take a huge left turn to maybe attract a younger audience. And that's what they're doing. They're kind of, in my opinion, I think like leaving their existing target audience kind of by the wayside and just finding a new market. I wouldn't even say that a brand refresh. I think that's a total rebrand. It's from a business perspective. So it's just a matter of like what your goals are and seeing if the current aesthetic aligns with those goals.
Okay, okay. So we've been talking about some established companies like Walmart and Jaguar. How about for startups and brand new entrepreneurs? What advice would you give them when they're first starting to build their brand?
Yeah. So there's a couple pieces that I would consider. And like I'm also coming from someone who did like I've started a couple of businesses in the last few years. So I've been there. I've been in those shoes really recently. I know there's obviously budgetary constraints when starting a business, and so you just have to be really strategic about where you're placing those dollars to make sure it has the most impact on where you're headed. And so what you can do, regardless of your budget, is start to acknowledge, again, those things I talked about earlier, why you started, who you want to attract, where you want to be 5 years from now, and ultimately what makes you unique in relation to your competition. And that's something I feel like doesn't get enough attention because I think when people are starting, they're still trying to find their footing and they see other companies they aspire to be, but they neglect their unique element or their unique value proposition of who they are and what they have to offer to the market. And so really capturing that unique element helps add personality to the brand that makes you feel different from your competition. Because without that, you start just feeling like everyone else. And there are just fun ways that we see other brands adding more personality that makes us like attracted to them just because they're different. And so I would say from starting off, becoming more aware of what makes you unique in regards to the industry and what you think you do really well, and then just like staying true to that. And in those moments of doubt, not feeling like you have to just look like something else. Because by doing that, it actually could weaken your offering, in my opinion.
Sure, because then you just become another Me Too brand, and
Right.
that doesn't help you.
Right, right. Like I know with your site design, we took inspiration from other businesses that you thought you were like not inspired by, I'll say, completely different, but valid for inspiration. But then we took your unique elements with your project of how to not make it look like theirs at all. It was very authentic to you. So you like take note of like all of these companies that you feel like, oh, I like them. Why do I like them? And then how does that relate back to what I'm doing now? And then you take all of that, keep all of that. When you end up working with a creative, they can use all of that as like material to make informed decisions versus just like guesses of what they think is best.
And you did, and I know I've been super complimentary from the beginning, but I'll continue to send kudos your way because I think you did a great job.
Thanks.
So, and it must be interesting being an expert in branding, right? We're surrounded by brands all day, every day, in magazines, on TV, on billboards. There's brands everywhere. It must drive you crazy sometimes when you see mistakes. Can you talk to like some of the more common mistakes that you see that some brands make?
Interesting. Common mistakes. Because it's hard because the ones that you see on popular places, it's like it's hard to say if they're mistakes or not because you like I don't I would say it's more mistakes with the people I know, like the people that I know who they are and I know why we made the decisions that we make. And then I see them implementing the brand or like introducing the brand to the world in different ways past our collaboration. That's more of when I'm like, like I think to myself, oh, I wish I stayed true to how they would normally have said this. Um, or if they invested a significant amount of resources in designing a brand, but then they just like arbitrarily choose a blue and a green that they think is nice on Canva or something like that when their brand
Right.
colors maybe aren't those at all. It's like those when you're ignorant to the visual side of the business, you don't understand the impact that those choices make. And so if you have that strong brand, just staying true to it and just believing that the reasons that they're there are significant. If they are significant, if they're not, then this is not valid. So yeah, just staying true to the brand and the colors, making informed decisions when you're designing it, and then upholding the integrity as you like actually use it in real life. Because it's like if you spend all of these resources to design a really great website, and then you're like, I'm just going to design my slides myself, and the slides are completely different than what your online presence is, then that's going to be a weakness and an incongruency with the brand, which will inherently weaken the brand. Of course, not everyone has all of the resources in the world to like do everything to the same level, but there's just some care that needs to be taken into consideration. So
that's really good advice. Don't ignore the visual representation of your brand and your colors. And I know you have some slides to share later. So for anybody listening, if you wanted to tune into the YouTube version of this, there will be some really interesting slides coming up here in a little bit. I'm a huge fan of metrics and KPIs and measurements, across the board in any business in any size. Is there a way to measure the success of branding or rebranding efforts?
great question. I would say it's a lever. So I feel like when you're struggling in business, you're constantly analyzing what is the reason that I am not having the success that I thought I would. Is it a pricing issue? Is it a sales issue? Is it a marketing issue? And I believe that if you can just get the branding piece done, the other two pieces, I'm not going to say will fall into place because they won't fall into place, but it'll kind of help you analyze them separately. For instance, there's a client that we're working with and they're having troubles with sales, and we designed their brand. We know that all the reasons that we chose the brand, very strategic. We know the target audience. We can say with certainty the issues that they're having with their business has nothing to do with the brand. So then they're able to look at their pricing and well, yeah, that's pretty much it. Pricing. So
Okay.
it's a very simple business. They sell products. So they're looking at their price and they're like, okay, there's probably an issue with the price that we're offering. And so now they're going to they like built this big following on LinkedIn due to some marketing that we were doing with them, which is awesome. And then people are not ultimately buying. The brand attracts them, but then they don't buy. And so that helps you kind of in regards to metrics is consolidate the issues and why they're happening. So I would say one, if you have great branding and you know where it comes from, that'll in turn help with word of mouth referrals, because when you're staying true to all of the things that make you unique and successful, people are going to appreciate that. They're going to be passionate about with you. They'll feel like they'll get to know you. There's so many brands like that. My gosh. And then they'll tell people about it. And so I think a brand success should be measured in word of mouth referrals. In many ways, like we don't really do much marketing with my businesses because our brand values and decisions are so strong down to the specific words that I type in emails. Like I spend so much time emailing because I'm so specific of the brand words that I chose and how I want people to perceive what I'm saying, because I need it to be consistent across the board. And so that in turn contributes to hopefully word of mouth referrals. So we don't have to do as much selling. And then ultimately, if people don't buy, then it's probably a price issue. So anyway, so that's kind of how I look at some of my decisions. It's going to be different for every person, but that's how we analyze the metrics for our clients and their brands.
Okay. And I will attest to that. Your emails are very deliberate, super professional, always very helpful, but very very deliberate wording. I've definitely noticed.
Yeah. It's like I wanted to feel I'm very personal, like interpersonal. Like I specifically, we talk about our project relationships as collaborations because so much of what I do is dependent on other people's success, right? Like I could, I will never do what you have done, Stephen, like in your life. I'm probably never going to hike Everest. But through my work, I can like collaborate with someone who will have hiked Everest and who will have started an amazing company and sold this amazing company and who's going to be being selling books and being a keynote speaker. And so I can't do my job without really learning who you are. And so by saying any other words like serving you or leading you, it's like we're collaborating, we're equals, and I'm going to be doing my part, but I need your part just as much. I need to understand you and make you feel comfortable. And so that all being said is like the brand language that I use in emails also upholds all of that too.
No, absolutely. And the collaboration was literally fantastic from day one until the website has launched. And since the website has launched, obviously, you and I and your team have worked on a series of changes since, and the collaboration has been top notch. And if any listener wants to see another great example, the guest that I had on last week, Scott Poteet, the SpaceX astronaut, um, Sienna and her company, Mosaic Collective, have designed his website as well. So take a look at his and get another example of some of the great work Sienna and her team do.
Thanks. And one thing to say too, jumping in here really quick, and I'd love to
Yeah,
hear your
sure.
opinion on this too, just building your company. Like I found that when I made a decision that was off brand, that's when I had the most conflict, either with a client or inner conflict with myself. And I'm like, oh, that didn't feel right. And so like that gives information of, okay, why does that not feel right? Because it's incongruent with my brand values. Maybe I responded in an email too harshly. Maybe I didn't explain myself enough. Maybe I wasn't as humble as I'd like to be. Like, and then it creates this friction. And so those are all information that you can have of like, okay, I need to work backwards then. How did this not give me the outcome I wanted and why? Because people perceive you as one way when you behave a different way, that's incongruent. So
Sure.
it's from colors and fonts down to the specific words you chose, down to how you email, how you present yourself. It's like all over. And I don't think people realize that. So question back to you in running your business. I was curious if you've ever had an experience where you had a situation where you felt like either you saw maybe a client be off brand or you felt like you'd made something that felt like off brand that gave you information of how to change your decision in the future. Kind of like made a mistake that informed your decisions moving forward.
Yeah, our brand, very similar to yours, was always to be incredibly collaborative with our customers.
Mm-hmm.
And we made it a habit to bend over backwards when they had issues. We were dealing in such a niche technology that it was, the larger the client, the more almost improbable it was for them to use off the shelf software. Right. If you're a small customer, you can buy our software, utilize it, and it'll work for you. But if you're a large multinational organization with hundreds of thousands of employees, and you're converting email data, you it's almost a given that you're going to need some sort of customization. And we always did whatever we possibly could in order to beat our competition, right?
Right.
Because our competition was a much larger company. They weren't as flexible nor as nimble as we were, and they weren't able to make these customizations. So there was very few times where we actually, stuck to our guns and said, sorry, customer, we can't make these customizations, because each customization would eat into profit margin. Right. For
Okay.
being a software company, you want to maximize your profits just by selling copies of the same software over and over and over again.
Mhm.
That's why Microsoft and Google and others make trillions of dollars. Um, we, on the other hand, had to do these customizations. So there were a couple of examples. Fortunately, there weren't a lot that where we said, sorry, we can't do this type of customization. And we convinced them to continue forward without the customizations. And at the end of the day, the project was still successful, but it was a little bit, off brand for us to really, draw a line in the sand and say, no, we're not doing that for you. We're going to show you how to do it with the software as is.
Interesting. And do you think that's what set you apart from your competition is being open and flexible to the customization?
100%, because we competed on some of the largest accounts literally in the world. Like if you threw a dart at the Fortune 5000 list of customers, 90% of those were our customers. And it got to the point where, we got so big that our competitor couldn't deal with the competition anymore. And they needed to acquire us to put us out of business.
Oh my gosh. So cool.
That was definitely an interesting ride for sure.
But like even I mean, granted, I don't know like scratching the surface of what you did there, but it's like by having that value of like, well, we are going to own the fact that we're going to be willing to be more flexible than our competition. Like just that little piece is could have contributed so much to your success. And that was an intentional decision you made, I believe, regarding the brand, which contributed
Yep.
to obviously the product that you were selling that ultimately set you apart from your competition and brought you to where you are today. So, but by staying true to it, like at any point you could have been like, you know, this is costing us way too much money. I'm not doing this anymore. And that could have been your detriment.
Definitely. Had we listened to and run our company by a more software playbook that we and like our competitor was, our margins would have been significantly greater, but then our win to loss ratio would have been less, right? So fortunately, a lot of us came from the consulting background where we did custom projects for customers. So when we became a software company, we still kind of had that consulting and customer satisfaction mentality where it wasn't weird to us to accept a customization request. And it became, like you said, part of our brand and part of our DNA moving forward.
I think it's so cool. And like you're so proud of that because it was unique to you. It's like we did that well and we succeeded from it. And I
Exactly.
think if business owners especially can make more decisions around just being human and like what people actually want to see versus just all money, like the money comes. The only very small example I have is I run a bar studio, which is a fitness exercise for people who are listening and don't know. And it was a passion project for me. It wasn't something that I started to like make a ton of money. It's a small business. And I just wanted to really like love people well and selfishly bring something to my town that I wanted in town that no one else was doing. And long story short, we decided to not implement no-show fees or late cancellation fees or really any fees in general. I don't have any fees associated with my business because I'm not this like greedy business owner that's like, I want to make all this money from fees because I know I can make 30% more if I do this. Because the brand value is we're going to be human first. And no one likes fees. I hate fees. I don't want to pay them. So why am I going to charge them? And so what that has led to is I spend virtually no time handling any client complaints because fees is when you create that friction with your
Of
clients
course.
where I'm spending that hour of time writing a simple email to think about how can I stay on brand with what I have to tell them. If I can just eliminate that in the first place, I'm saving that hour and I'm putting that to something that's much more profitable for my business. And so that's one way. Like we've had people, word of mouth referrals, my gosh, like we don't do any marketing with that business, but people feel so cared for and seen that they're doing our marketing for us by getting people to come and then they stay because they feel like a human cared for
Hmm.
is just a transactional client. So one example of how in totally different business that we're doing that. And while it may not look great, like we could be making more money, I'd have a lot more headache and stress and I just don't want that.
I think you're also going to benefit from a lot more customer retention by not charging those fees because the customer satisfaction just goes through the roof when somebody messes up, right? It's their fault, and the service provider doesn't ding them for it. They're like, "Holy cow, this is a great company. I'm going to come back again."
Exactly. And it actually has an effect the other way too, because I'm not perfect and I'll mess up sometimes. And I haven't had, cross my fingers, haven't had any issues yet of people being like, this is unacceptable, you know, blah, 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 because I'm setting that precedent of like, it's okay. We
Sure.
can be, we can be like, we can be forgiving, you know, we can be understanding. And so I think it's worked out well.
Hey, karma is a beautiful thing. If you allow your clients to be late, and if you show up 5 minutes late once a month, then it's okay.
Exactly. No one's, yeah, it's like the most part, no one's like abusing it. I haven't had to deal with that. It's like, it's been a really beautiful thing to see, you know, to give people a chance versus just not trusting anyone. And so
Hmm.
maybe it'll bite me in the butt someday, but for now, I'm going to enjoy it.
Nope. Keep it up. Keep it up. So you just glossed over this really quickly, but I wanted to bring it out. You said, and I think this is a great idea and great advice for entrepreneurs that are always, trying to think of what the next thing is. Bring a business into your town that you wish was there. So that's the way you launch your bar studio, and voila, it's growing. So if anybody listening, if you're thinking of it about your next idea, bring a business into town that you you wish was there.
Exactly. It's like if I'm thinking about it, someone else has got to be thinking about it, and then they will come.
Absolutely. So I know that you prepared a couple of slides to share. So for anybody listening, I highly, highly encourage you to check out the YouTube version of this. Go to the approximate, 30-minute mark and see some of these slides because I I was first introduced to Sienna when I saw her present on branding, and she brought up these slides, and the commentary that she provided was incredible. So I just wanted her to share this with the audience as well.
Sure. So context behind the slides is that I was presenting in front of a bunch of public speakers for an event, and I had to get them to trust me that colors and fonts matter because it sounds so silly, especially when you're dealing with so many bigger problems as a business owner. And I know the power of them, and so I really wanted to prove it to the very beginning of my talk so they would listen to me for the next 60 minutes. So for those who are just listening, I have two color palettes. There's one color palette on the left and one color palette on the right. And basically what I'm showing this exercise is how important just colors are in people's buying decisions. And so these two color palettes, for instance, are color palettes that represent two businesses that both offer food. And so if I was driving on the highway and I knew that I needed a meal that was quick, maybe like a 3-minute meal, and all I saw was this company's colors, and I had to make my buying decision, I would ask the audience, which one would you go to, the business on the left or the business on the right? And unanimously, everyone said the business on the left because we all recognize those colors as Burger King versus the colors on the right, which is Cheesecake Factory. Maybe you don't know consciously it's Cheesecake Factory, but you know the colors on the left are faster. Again, you have two color palettes. Both of these businesses that represent these color palettes sell shoes. And so if I needed to buy shoes that were cheaper and more economic, and all I had was the color palettes to make my decision off of, we are more inclined to go to the business on the right because we are familiar with those colors being Walmart. And it's funny that we talked about Walmart before. And so all this being said is I think there's a lot of these conversations around color psychology. And to be honest, I don't actually know what came first, chicken or the egg situation. Did the colors inform the decisions for these brands, or did the significance of the brands inform the way we perceive colors? Being the more logical realist I am, I kind of feel it's the latter. And maybe there's a bunch of psychologists listening to this that are like, no way, you're wrong. Great, prove me wrong. But as a designer, what I do is I play off of this information that prominent brands say that colors mean. What colors mean. And these two colors, for instance, these are both car companies. If I wanted to buy a safe car or recommend a car for my nephew or something like that, I would be more inclined to do the colors on the left because we recognize those colors as Ford versus Ferrari, bright, vibrant, dangerous, sporty. And that applies to fonts as well. And so these are two fonts, left and right, of both companies sell purses. And so if I wanted to buy a purse that was very luxurious and indulgent, and I only had fonts to go off of, I would pick the business on the left because I recognize that font style as something that's more premium and luxurious without knowing consciously that that's the Prada logo. So these ones very obvious, but it's funny that it's obvious just because we're so familiar with how branding works. Two totally different fonts, but if I wanted to buy a gift for my mom who's feminine, would I go to the business on the left or the business on the right? And we can all agree we go to the business on the right because we recognize the fonts on the left as being very masculine. So all that being said is that if you're just arbitrarily choosing your branding decisions aesthetically, you are missing a huge opportunity to communicate a first impression. You're just losing control over how your brand is perceived aesthetically. Because if you just say, I choose blue because I like blue, it's my favorite color, you're not understanding of what shade that blue is communicating to your audience based on the other brands in the industry or just in the world of how they're using those blues and how they're communicating it. Like the Facebook blue, it's a very tech blue now. That's a blue we see in a lot of tech companies. They use that blue. If I were to use that blue in something totally different from tech, it could be communicating. You could say oh, this brand feels very techy to me. I never would have thought this was a grocery store. because it's a grocery store, it makes it feel like these product, like this feels very manufactured, or this doesn't feel organic to me. I'm probably not going to go there because I don't like the vibe. Just that gives you that impression. So all that being said, very long-winded, is just like colors and fonts matter, and you should choose them very strategically with a professional.
No, this this was great information and fantastic visuals. I highly encourage folks to check out the YouTube version of this to see the slides that Sienna showed. Colors do and fonts mean a ton. Sienna, you have been a wealth of information. Obviously, your expertise in web design and branding and contextual models definitely, came through in spades. Thank you so much. What is the best way for folks to get in touch with you if they're interested to learn more and potentially work with you?
Yeah, sure. You can get in touch with me. LinkedIn is an easy way. Sienna Roman. There's not many of us out there, so you'll find me. And then otherwise, you can go to our website. It's Mosaic, spelled MOZAIC -collective.com. And then you can just fill out our contact information there and you'll get a hold of me. But either one works. LinkedIn's probably easier, but that's where you can find me.
Perfect. We'll put that information in the show notes. Thank you again so much for agreeing to be on the show.
Oh, thanks, Stephen. I appreciate the time. And hopefully all of your listeners takes away something that's helpful or meaningful today.
I think they will. Thank you all very much for listening and viewing. This has been another great episode of the Built to Finish podcast. If you've enjoyed this show, please like and comment and subscribe below. And if you think others would benefit from hearing all this great information about branding, please do forward a link to this episode to them. Thank you again for tuning in. That's a wrap for this episode of Built to Finish. Thank you for tuning in. For show notes and more details, head over to podcast.stephenpivnik.com. Special thank you to our sponsor, Accresis, offering tailored, high-impact advisory services to help founders get to their finish line with a strategic acquisition or majority investor recapitalization. Catch you next week.